No error message.
Okay. You got no error message. Okay, I think we're live. We are live on YouTube today, June 27th, 2025. I am Tim Polari here today with Lance Rienstierna and a very special guest. And today we're not talking about missing people, Lance, are we?
No, but we are talking about a couple other missing things. And one of those missing things in our lives has come back into our lives, and we're super happy to have this guest back on. It's going to be a wild ride. And I think when I say it's going to be a wild ride, I think some people are like, wait a sec, they've said that before. And I know what name is connected to that description. So we're going to be we're going to be hopping on the train here, and we're going to talk about another missing case. A case of missing artwork and a case of missing justice.
Yes, the missing Gardner artwork, the stolen Gardner artwork from 1990 in Boston, Massachusetts. 13 works of art. It's worth up to about $1 billion at this point in 2025. And of course, this happened 35 years ago in Boston, Massachusetts. And we have a podcast called Empty Frames. And we've done maybe like 40 episodes or so on this case, or actually on art crime. Most of them are on the Gardner heist from Boston. Maybe like, I don't know, 7 or 8 are not, something like that. But yeah, we urge you to check it out. It's called Empty Frames. We think you'll love it. And we've got a return guest here live with us on YouTube. It is Paul Turbo Hendry. Paul, how are you today?
Morning, how you doing, guys? Yeah, let's get ready to rumble. 5 years since we have spoken, 0 Gardner art recovered. The only people benefiting from it are grifters and carpetbaggers. And most people would think of those right people as not in authority, but it's those in authority, right, that have prevented any Gardner art being recovered.
No time wasted.
Right.
Getting right into it right there. I think you even started us off with a potential lawsuit by saying it's let's get ready to rumble, but you didn't do it with the same tone and inflection as the individual who created that term. But Turbo, let's just catch up a little bit. How have you been? It's been so long. You sound great. What's been going on outside of the Gardner art? How have you been keeping yourself busy, and how's everything going?
Well, yes, I'm now affectionately known as Art Hostage. I've got my own YouTube channel. I do a daily live. I've created 1,545 episodes in 3 years. So in the 5 years since we have spoken and we did our last episode on the Gardner case, I've moved on to organised crime, drug cartels and other organised crime activity around the globe, extended beyond art crime, because what has happened now is most people in that world know that they just use stolen art within that world, and they don't try to hand it back, get rewards, because we have now proved beyond any reasonable doubt all rewards are fake. All rewards are never paid out. I mean, we can take the case of Saddam Hussein. One of his cousins gave the location for Saddam Hussein. He was found in a hole, $25 million reward, and they refused to pay it because they said he was related to Saddam Hussein. Rewards are fake. They will never be paid. Thankfully, I've got that information out. And now people know. Sadly, the Gardner case is now just a mere memory. People are not interested in the Gardner case. And that is the responsibility of the old FBI who were working the case, and Anthony Amore, who is the security director of the Gardner Museum. By their sheer stubbornness, they have not recovered 0.
I love how I said, how's it going? And how's everything going?
This is great.
This is amazing.
So just want to give out Turbo's YouTube page here. It's at ArtHostage8586. And we'll put that link in the chat as well. But Turbo, I'm curious, can you take us back to the reward for the Stolen Gardner art. What is the situation with the reward? How does it exist now, and how are you hoping to change it?
Well, currently, for many years, the reward has been offered subject to specific conditions. For example, the art is returned in good condition. Now, having known that some art was cut from its frames, it will never be in good condition until restored. So that is a get out clause for the museum not to pay. Also, there's no individuality in the reward. It's just $10 million for all 13 pieces. So the museum perhaps could say, here's 2 pieces we've recovered, but we're not paying out anything until we've recovered all 13 pieces. So what I said 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, there should be a Gardner art reward price list. Every stolen work of art should have a portion of the reward applied to it. For example, the Vermeer, you can say $1 million. The Rembrandt Storm on the Sea, $1 million. The Manet, $500,000. One of the Degas drawings, you could say $50,000. You know, those, right, the Eagle Finial, there is a separate reward for that of $100,000. So why aren't there separate rewards for the other 12 pieces? Because the likelihood of all 13 pieces being together 35 years later is very, very remote. And if someone has got one piece, they're not going to want to hand it back unless they know they're going to get paid. And the problem is that most in the underworld know the reward is fake and know that prosecutions are still sought. Now, I would say the first thing that needs to be done is the FBI needs to announce that the case is closed, they are no longer investigating it, and that they're going to allow the Gardner Museum to make a private recovery, immunity to anyone who can recover the Gardner art, no scrutiny, no backstories, no demanding people become witnesses and all of that. The statute of limitations on the Gardner case expired after 5 years back in the 90s, right? So they said themselves they're not looking to prosecute. Well, if that's the case, what are the FBI still involved for? This is a theft of artworks from the museum, the FBI, and I'll tell you why they're involved, because they still want to prosecute people 35 years later. And it means that the Gardner art is radioactive. No one is interested. And I will take full responsibility when I realise that the whole thing was fake immunity, fake reward. I personally went out and told all my contacts around the world that it was fake, and they refused to engage. When I did that, Anthony Amore and his sidekick, Chris Marinello, right, tried to get me arrested on 2 separate occasions. They got my local police force to contact me with possible malicious communications. They investigated the police and no further action. The second time, Anthony Amore and Chris Marinello tried to get me arrested for defamation of character. Again, police, no further action. You see, they've been bullying, right? It's a gravy train for Anthony Amore. Now, that has happened since we spoke 5 years ago. They tried to silence me, but they failed miserably, and the message is out there. No one will step forward with any information in the current form and terms included, and the FBI need to leave the stage. Anthony Amore needs to retire, and we need to have some fresh blood who is prepared to buy back. Yes, they say it's illegal, I understand, but we live in a transactional world now, right? Those who've got the Gardner art want paying, and if you don't pay them, they're not going to hand them back. Authorities have had 35 years to sting them, set them up, ruse, fake reward, and have got precisely nowhere. So if anyone wants the Gardner art back, they're going to have to pay. Forget all this moral and ethical and, do it for the good of Boston. People don't do things like that for nothing. $1 billion in art, free, right, to be recovered. I'm very sorry, but those things, right, are in a bygone era, maybe the 1950s, not 2025. Everything is transactional these days. Whether you like it or not, the current administration shows that. Everything has got its price, and it's a quid pro quo world we live in. So yes, you want the Gardner art back, $1 billion worth. Okay, the reward's still low, but $10 million needs to be legally binding. That whoever does it, there's no charges, no get out of jail free card. And another thing, where is this $10 million the Gardner Art's offering? Is it in an account? Because the Gardner Museum got $2 million during the pandemic of 2020 off the government. The government gave the private museum, the Gardner Museum, $2 million of American taxpayers' money. So, I mean, those are the questions. And I would just like to add, I've been saying this for the last 20 years, right, on media platforms, and I did the documentary, right, and everyone attacked me, right, and said that it wasn't true, but I've been proved, I've been vindicated, right. 35 years later, no Gardner art recovered, a career made out of it by Anthony Amore. And in fact, globally, right, the recoveries of stolen art are minuscule now, and I take responsibility because I tell people the truth about what is going on. The only stolen art recovered today has been paid for, whether it's by the insurance company, a victim. Money has changed hands. Now, it might be technically illegal, right? But we live, as I say, in a transactional world. We don't live in a moral, ethical world where people do things for the common good. I'm just being honest about this.
Okay, let's stop you there because there's a lot of information that you just gave to us, and we appreciate it all. I just have a couple of follow-up questions here. You said that they tried to have you arrested. Can we just elaborate that a little? Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more? Who tried to have you arrested, and how do we know that this is something that is like, is this documented somewhere?
Yes, it is. Anthony Amore and Chris Marinello, right, reported me to Sussex Police on, first of all, the first time was for malicious communications. Sussex Police, right, spoke to me. We exchanged emails. I spoke over the telephone to the lady police officer. She investigated it thoroughly and sent me an email and confirmed by telephone that Sussex Police were taking no further action. I have all the receipts for that. Second occasion, Chris Marinello and Anthony Amore tried to have me arrested and charged with defamation of character. A different police officer, I spoke through the whole thing, received an email and a phone call to say that there was no further action. Right, both times were malicious prosecutions. Anthony Amore and Chris Marinello were abusing their power, especially Anthony Amore, to push leverage with my local police. Right, and also what happened around the same time was that the esteemed, well-respected writer and journalist Casey Sherman contacted the Gardner Museum when I put allegations of bullying from Anthony Amore and Chris Marinello, and both of those denied it, but Casey Sherman caught Chris Marinello out. And Chris Marinello threatened to take legal action against Casey Sherman if he wrote the article. Well, Casey Sherman, the true Marine that he is, right, said, I will write this story and would not be put off. Then, allegedly, Anthony Amore, the Gardner Museum, and possibly even the FBI, pressured the Boston Herald to not write the article in Casey Sherman's column. He had the article ready to go for the Monday, and on the Sunday, right, they not only pulled the article up, Casey Sherman left the Boston Herald. and his column, right, he left his column, regular weekly column in the Boston Herald, right, and the story was pulled. So angry was Casey Sherman, he published the story on Twitter, as it was then, in a series of tweets, word for word. That is the kind of people we're dealing with, right? Is they're bullies. They tried to silence me. They tried to silence Casey Sherman. Also, Kelly Horan, who made the long series Last Seen, she went to Anthony Amore after speaking to me and said, would you provide a reward list, because that may increase people's desire to contact you? Anthony Amore allegedly said, no, we don't want to do that because it will give an advantage to those who hold the Gardner art. To which Kelly Horan said, I thought you only wanted to recover the art. And this is the quote. Anthony Amore allegedly said, yes, we only want to recover the art on our terms. So in other words, right, it's their terms. And if those terms are not met, they don't want to recover the art.
It's interesting that you say that they are bullies and they chose to bully you and Casey Sherman, and to an extent, based on, and I love that you use the word allegedly there, Kelly Horan. Those are three people that I don't think are the right people to be bullied in this situation. Do you think that the response from everybody had, or let me ask this a different way, the response that came from you and Kelly and Casey Sherman, what do you think that did to the people who were trying to bully the three of you, or at least the two of you?
Yes, it backfired spectacularly, because since they tried to bully Casey Sherman, right, his career was reaching new heights, but it's gone even into the stratosphere now, because quite rightly so, he is an extremely talented man. Kelly Horan, when she was bullied, right, she left the Boston Herald, but then they gave her own column. So that was her reward for keeping quiet. You see, they didn't come out and scream and shout like me and blow the whistle, because they are, no, but listen, they are genuine, decent people. They don't want to cause a fuss and all this carry on, right? And the pressure was coming from the FBI, the Gardner Museum, Amore, Marinello. So they just sort of stepped back, and she was rewarded, Kelly, with her new column. Casey just went on with his career that was reaching new heights. And me, I just stepped back and just started my own podcast on YouTube about general organised crime. But the cat is out of the bag now. That Anthony Amore is a grifter, a carpetbagger. He's been running his own agenda since 2006. And Casey Sherman can even support this, right, that he shouldn't have even got the job. He lied about his career as a security person at Logan Airport. He lied that he was involved in the Richard Reed shoe bomber case. What happened was the FBI arrested Richard Reed. He was taken to Boston, and Anthony Amore, as just a lowly security man, was just happened to be on duty. He walked across the tarmac, put his hand on the shoulder of Richard Reed, walked him back into the arms of the FBI, and that's it. Yet Anthony Amore dines out on the fact that he was one of the lead investigators on the Richard Reed case, and the actual lead investigator on the case, the ex-FBI agent, said he'd never heard of Anthony Amore. So listen, these people are trying to put themselves, well, as I say, Anthony Amore was one of the first DEI hires back in 2006. Totally unqualified, totally inappropriate, but he would do the bidding of the FBI. So that really, in truth, the Gardner art is only to be recovered on their terms. Well, they failed for 35 years.
Yeah, they sure have. Yeah, no stolen art has been returned in 35 years. And now the lead investigator on the Gardner art case, Jeff Kelly, who worked for the FBI.
Yeah, he's retired.
Yeah, so he recently retired. So how does that change the investigation and Amore's
Well,
angle,
let
I
me
suppose.
tell you, the FBI have got much more important things to think about than a 35-year-old property theft, albeit $1 billion in the publicity, right? So for my money, right, the Gardner case is deep in the deep six refrigerator files. They're not interested. If a lead comes up, they would react. They're not proactive. Anthony Amore's gone suspiciously quiet. That right, and just to add, he's used the Gardner case and his role in the Gardner case to launch 2 runs at public office. And each time, right, he has been a disastrous failure. He lost 80% at 20% and 73% at 25%. Right, the man is a loser. I don't mean to be rude, but he is a loser. And I thought America breeds winners. Right, if you want to win the Gardner case, you got to pay the money. It's as simple as that. I know it leaves a bad taste in the mouth. I understand. Right, but how else are you going to get $1 billion worth of art back? You can't play on people's morals and ethics. They don't exist on this planet anymore, sadly.
Yeah, now I have to say, as a Massachusetts resident, I'm a little conflicted when I see his name on the ballot, because if he were to get the job, presumably he wouldn't work for the Gardner anymore, and maybe there would be a breath of fresh air taking over the investigation from. Okay.
Make sure you get the phone.
But I also don't.
Right, it was just so it was my phone. It didn't say Anthony Amore, right? So it's not Anthony.
Well, he would. I don't think he'd be using his actual name on caller ID.
But at the same time, I also don't know if that's the kind of person we want in office either. So I'm a little conflicted on that.
Well, if you want to look at that, look at his relationship with Miles Connor, the infamous art thief. They were having boozy lunches together. I mean, and just on a personal note, I mean, Anthony Amore, right at the Christmas pantomime, he can play Mr. Creosote from Monty Python's. I mean, he's put about 10 stone on in weight since he's been at the Gardner Museum. It's all them long, boozy lunches and running for public office. He reminds me of Chris Christie, that man from New Jersey. You know Chris Christie? You know him? Yeah, you seen him like a little barrel, isn't he? Right? Yeah, exactly. Anthony Amore, all that pasta and all that stuff, right? He's got more chins than the Chinese phone book. Now, listen. Right, I mean, honestly, now listen, it's about time he was called out. We've had 20 years, right, of mismanagement in trying to recover the stolen Gardner art. Honestly, and he thinks he's some kind of Romeo, Anthony Amore. He thinks and he likes to pretend he's like a ladies' man and all this. Who's he think he is? You know, Brad Pitt? I don't think so.
Wow, a lot right there. All right, cool. I had another question here. God, I lost it.
Well, my question is, even though there is no current reward price list, and I know that I guess the FBI can still prosecute if they wanted to, but
Yes.
if someone out there had one of these stolen works of art, could they go to their lawyer and that lawyer contact the Gardner art and sort of negotiate their way through this return?
No, because they the FBI and Gardner Museum would put the lawyer in front of a grand jury and demand that they reveal who is their client. That's another trick that that they've been using as well. No, the what needs to be done, Lance and Tim, it needs to come from the FBI and Gardner Museum side to tempt people. Here's the reward price list. There's no conditions, right? There's no conditions on this, right? As long as the work of art can be restored, there's no conditions. There's the price list. There is full immunity. The FBI need to announce we're not even investigating it, because to be honest, they're not really. They're only reactive. They're not proactively investigating it. So why not come out and tell the public? Right, it's all over 35 years ago. Most people are dead anyway. So if you get any of this art comes back, it'll probably be from the offspring of those people involved or in the handling. You know, someone like, I don't know, Bobby Gentile or someone like that, his nephew or someone like that. I mean, Billy Youngworth was correct 30 years ago when he said that it's a fool's gold journey, right? It's a fake reward. Billy Youngworth, everyone attacked him. He's been proved to be correct. I've been proved to be correct. Last 5 years. Now, it used to be the front and centre in Boston. Everyone, where's the Gardner Art? Now, no one cares. And to be honest with you, Anthony Amore, you should be under the stairs where nobody cares.
All right. Good use of phrasing there. So I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here and say if this is what people have called a cottage industry for Amore, and he's making a living and a career off of this stolen Gardner art, why hasn't anyone in his circle or himself figured out a way to get the artwork returned? Because I feel like that would be something like a direct return. You fill the frames again, people come back in the museum, you write a new book saying that you got the artwork back. You know, the people, there's lines down the, you know, into the fens in Boston because it's so they're the artwork now.
They're a one-trick pony. They're one-dimensional. Anthony Amore looks through a law and order lens. And so, as he said, yes, they can come back on our terms because they don't want to say we recovered these pieces of Gardner art. We don't know who they come from. We don't know the background, and we paid the reward. Well, that don't fit their narrative, does it? Their narrative is we investigated and we surrounded them with FBI and we opened the boot of the car and there's a Gardner artwork. And now the people are on trial and all this. That's what they want, their narrative. But the world don't work like that. If they was to recover it and there was and the reward was legally paid, if there was no arrests, right, and no great big FBI sting to recover it, if it was just recovered from a confessional box or something, right, well, it wouldn't fit their narrative. So yes, he might be able to write a book, but he'd be made to look like the idiot he is. That's why, Lance. That's why they won't recover it, because it's not on their terms. They want to give the law and order version that we persisted.
Now, what if this scenario is accurate, if someone knew the location of all of the artwork, right, and it was all kept in a condition where it wasn't significantly damaged, although we know that it was significantly damaged when it was stolen, but any further damage was not inflicted on the artwork, and they had it all collected in one spot, it wasn't further damaged, what's stopping somebody from leaving it on the doorstep of the Gardner Museum and walking away without being noticed at all, and causing that to be something that Amore and his circle have to deal with after the fact? Wouldn't that?
Yeah, but how would they get the $10 million reward?
Well, if they knew that the $10 million reward was just fake anyway, then
oh right. Well, to be honest with you, the two words to right, you're right. The answer to your question, two words: human nature. No one on this planet in their right mind is going to take $1 billion worth of art and put it on the doorstep of a Gardner without any kind of personal reward. Honestly, I'll tell you what, I'll even say this. I don't even think Pope Leo would do that. I think he'd be looking for a few quid. He'd be looking for a few dollars. Now, come on, let's stop all this nonsense, right? It's a transactional world. Honestly, though, Lance, I understand. Good question, right? The reason no one does that is because the value of the things.
But, okay, so I'm just putting this out there, riding this scenario a little bit further. Okay, so people know that the reward is fake, but they have the artwork. In their head, they're thinking, I'm going to drop off the artwork. I'm not going to get a reward because it's fake, first of all. So my option is drop it off, not get a reward, keep it. I know the reward is fake. So what do I do with this? So I get that whole like fool's gold type thing, or fool's
it could be, if you're in that criminal world, you could use it as collateral.
Right, you can still use it as collateral
on other things. But at the end of the day, right? The thing is, and again, most people would rather not give it back and get nothing. I get nothing, you get nothing, a
Right.
détente, right? Rather than give it back, right? So if someone's sitting there with a day guard drawing, knows they're getting nothing, right? Well, they just keep it, and then it'll go on to the next generation, right? But at the end of the day, right, there is no hope that anyone is willingly going to give information on the Gardner case or willingly going to give anything back until there is a cast iron guarantee that the reward or part of the reward is going to be paid. And the FBI are not investigating. What are they even doing on the case 35 years ago? Please tell me, why are the FBI still investigating it? If they don't want to prosecute the case, there's no statute of limitations has gone decades ago. Why are the FBI still involved?
All right, I'm gonna keep riding the scenario a little bit, because I am putting out a personal plea. If this is a case, it's some that they exist and they haven't been destroyed. Okay, the reward's fake. You can use it as collateral, or you can drop it off, and you can then contact production companies, and you can have your Netflix moment, or you can have your Apple TV moment, and you can be the person who is on that documentary saying, I am the person who dropped off the artwork.
Yes,
That's
good.
Out, right?
That's very good, Lance. If the person is someone like your good self or Lance, but if they're not really, and they're not interested in that aspect of it, and again, at the end of the day, right, you said that run with that. I would say no, don't give anything back. Give no one nothing for nothing. Because that will encourage more people to be expected to give something away for nothing. You don't give it away. Honestly and truthfully, it's the moral thing here is I want paying. I was on a case where there was £50 million, right, which is about $75 million worth of jade stolen from the Fitzwilliam Museum. Right, I went to the insurance company. I had a lead. I could have got the meeting where Chinese people were there, seeing it was authentic and the deal was going to be done. They could have recovered all 18 bits. Right, I said, how much reward? They went 100,000. I went, they're worth 75 million. They went, oh, well, that's it. I went, see you later. Right, 2 weeks later, they called me back. I went, listen, you're 2 weeks too late. The meeting went ahead and the jade is on its way to China now. So that's what you get. You see, there was a gold toilet, solid gold, valued at $6 million. Right, the insurance company, right, it melted down to $4 million in the melting pot. The insurance company offered $100,000 reward. I said, listen, it goes in the melting pot for, I spoke to the insurance assessor, Philip Austin. I said, how much a reward? He went 100,000. I said, it goes in the pot for 4 million. Oh, well, that's all it is. I said, can you hear that? He said, what's that? I said, that is hacksaws, right, cutting it up to put it in the melting pot. I said, you morons, you either offer a reward of what the melt value is, or you don't offer a reward at all. And again, everyone says that went in the melting pot for $4 million. We live in a crooked transactional world, right? We don't live in the 1950s where, you know, how many people, if they $100 they saw on the ground, would put it in their pocket? Years ago, it might have been 40%. Now I'd say it's 99.9% of people have put it in their pocket. That is the kind of world we live in. And until we face that, you're never going to see any Gardner art whatsoever.
Right.
The only people that profit out of these out of this whole case has been Anthony Amore promoting himself, and the Gardner Museum playing the victim.
And empty frame.
Right. Yeah.
And people like us talking about this. But you see, I've always been regarded as the kind of black sheep of the Gardner case because I don't hold back. I tell it how I see it. And for decades, I've been pilloried, I've been attacked, and I've been humiliated, tried to get me arrested because I'm telling the truth. Well, the chickens have come home to roost now. 2025, they've got zero back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do have to say, so you're saying that the Gardner artwork, and you mentioned the stolen golden toilet. You're saying that these rewards aren't high enough for the value, for the exchange of the famous work of art.
Well,
And
in a sense, right? But
yeah,
they're not high enough. But even collectible, even at that low level, they're still uncollectible because of all the conditions, right, that are applied to them. Right, so rewards really is just publicity, right? Very rarely do rewards ever get paid.
And to your point about no one wanting to hand over a very valuable piece of stolen artwork to its original owner or to the museum that owned it before it was stolen, we spoke with 3 antique store owners from Silver City, New Mexico, back in, I think it was episode 1
with the William de Kooning.
Season 2, yeah. So the William de Kooning, the woman ochre painting was famously stolen by Rita and Jerry. Yeah, I forget their last name, but the antique store was called Manzanita Ridge out of Silver City.
Yeah, because they may have done other ones. They were a Jewish couple, weren't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, they had the painting on the back of their bedroom door, or on the wall that the bedroom door, when open, concealed it, and only when that door was closed, was that.
Most art is stolen by art thieves, and it gets sold to art handlers. That case, Adler, I think their name was. Right. Anyway, they stole things, right, for their own personal gratification. Right, so those are the thieves that you'll never ever be able to stop, right? But we're talking about the Gardner thieves. Weren't people hanging it on the back of their door for aesthetic reasons, were they? It was purely financial.
Correct. But my point is that the fellas who owned the antique store, once they realized what they had, they called the FBI, they called the museum, and they tried to give it back and do the Good Samaritan thing.
You saw how badly they were treated, and the heavy nature of this and all of this carry on. We saw that. So why would anyone else want to put themselves? And that case is a minuscule compared to the global notoriety of the Gardner case. It's the holy grail, and everyone wants a piece. Anthony Amore wants to stand behind the podium with the FBI holding up a piece of the Gardner art and say, "We got it." You know, who's he think he is? Paul Browner in Iraq? We got him. I mean, that's what he wants to do. Sit there with all these great big chins after eating his dinner, right? And all he wants to do, right, is say, "We got it, and we got so and so in custody." Well, I'm sorry, it ain't going to happen, is it? 35 years later.
Okay, I got another scenario I just want to hear your thoughts on. Somebody gets themselves into the Antique Roadshow. One of the thieves, they have all of the artwork.
Okay.
And they present it live on TV at the Antique Roadshow. And they have one of those artwork assessors see it for the first time and realize, wait, I'm looking at the edges. They've been cut from the frames. Oh my goodness. And then the person says, well, I have 12 more pieces. I found it in my basement. This is one of the thieves, and they're just putting on a show. So the display of the whole thing is so public. What happens then?
Well, the police, right? Local police would descend upon it. The place would be sealed off. The FBI would land it in helicopters. They'd handcuff the man, drag him out of there, and again call Anthony Amore, and they'd say, "We've recovered it," and they will claim victory.
So wouldn't that be like some good poetic justice? But how would they arrest if the statute of limitations is up? How would that person be arrested?
Well, they would find crossing state lines with stolen art. There's the other one of handling stolen art, right? And it's a federal offence, and it carries 10 years. That's another reason the FBI is still involved. It's a federal offence, and it carries 10 years. 10 years mandatory, and you get no parole on that. So anyone who goes down the FBI route is looking at 10 years in jail.
Yeah, okay, unless they have a really, really, really good lawyer. But I love that you just cleared that up, because I never made that connection. Shockingly, I don't know why this never occurred to me. So the theft itself, the statute of limitations is up. But anything connected to like transporting stolen art over state lines, that's
handling stolen art, knowing it or believing it to be stolen. You can't say I didn't know it was stolen. Go, well, it's all everywhere on the internet and all that stuff. Mind you, he did. Steven Spielberg, he had Norman Rockwell's Russian schoolroom on his office wall, and it was also on the FBI's stolen list. And he ended up having to give it back, and that's another story. So it just shows you at the end of the day, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Do you think Steven Spielberg has the Gardner art? Is that what we're...
No, but I'll tell you what, he died recently, Sumner Redstone, and he was alleged to have had a downstairs secret room with stolen art in that he used to show his friends, only his A-list friends, Sumner Redstone. Right, he's died recently. There have been cases in history where famous people have been caught with stolen art. Versace, the designer, when he was murdered, some of his artwork went to auction, and they found paintings that have been stolen all over Europe. Boy George had an icon stolen in '74 in Cyprus. He had it on his wall, and it was only that a publicity photo showed it, and someone went, "Here, that comes from Cyprus in '74." Right, there have been many occasions where famous people, right, have had stolen art, and they always say, "Oh, I didn't know it was stolen." Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? If there's a little allure in there, you're in that world and you've got billions, like Bezos. He's marrying that tart. What's her name? Lauren Sanchez. Right, he's marrying her, right, in Venice. Right, if someone went to him, right, I don't know whether he's into art, and went, "Here, do you fancy having a go with a gardener?" Right, "Oh, yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?" Right, couple of $1 million, and he'd put it somewhere, only for a few. It's, you know, it'll be a way for them to get their rocks off. I don't know if you've got the biggest boat in the world and billions of dollars and diamonds and a plastic wife, and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? Here, listen, I don't know, right, apparently someone said that Lauren Sanchez, right, apparently she has swallowed more semen than the Bermuda Triangle. Apparently, no, I'm telling you, apparently, right, and when she was born, she was so ugly, the midwife slapped her mother.
Stop. I have no reference on really who she is.
Well, that's his future wife.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that the idea of a Dr. No, someone who, and we've gone over this with you before, I think in season 2.
Yes, in series 2.
Yeah, so the idea of a Dr. No, someone extremely wealthy, has no aversion to buying stolen art or having it in their collection and showing people who they trust.
President Putin stole a ring off of one of the Super Bowl geezers, right? And the
Bob Kraft.
Yeah, and Oleg Deripaska, the billionaire, bought a load of stolen Petite Philippe watches in Montenegro, right, and gave one to Lord Mandelson. When it went wrong in Vienna, right, they said, "Here, this has been stolen in an armed robbery," and Oleg Deripaska had to pay top Vienna lawyers to cover it up. Right, he gave some of the jewelry to Putin. So all of a sudden, right, in that world, but you see, all of them, yeah, I don't know, allegedly, Elon Musk, right, Jeff Bezos, all of them, Larry Ellis, all them multi-billionaires, right? When you've got everything, you can do anything. You want to be a bit naughty, don't you? Well, if you don't want to be blowing that white stuff up his nose, right, he might get a high from owning some stolen works of art. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I just searched on Amazon stolen Gardner Museum art, and all 13 pieces come up here. This is
they do. Yes, unfortunately, they're painted in China. Yeah, they're painted in China, and they'd still be wet when they sent them to you. But you see, that's why I like to do things live, because you never know where it's going to go, do you?
Certainly didn't see a couple of those comments going where they went.
I mean, can't you joke? I mean, that's what we're seeing. The world's forgotten how to laugh. The world's forgotten how to ridicule. Satire and public figures are put up there for people to ridicule. That's the whole point of it. like, you know, used to be Crookshank in the 19th century. We've seen satirical writers and comedians today and all of this stuff. Why are people so thin-skinned, little snowflakes running around going, give me a safe space, all that load of nonsense? You know, man up. You know, that's what I'm saying. Man up, right? That's it. In the Supreme Court in the UK, they ruled that there are only two genders, male and female. Game over.
So any other cases that you've been following closely that have been developing in 2024 or 2025?
Well, yeah, there was a robbery in the Netherlands of a great big fat diamond. There have been a few other robberies. The art that was stolen in the Netherlands, the Van Gogh, was handed back, and guess who recovered it? As predicted, Arthur Brand. He recovered the Van Gogh he was looking for. Everyone got paid. They've still got a Frans Hals outstanding worth about $20 million, but that'll be handed back when payments are made. Now, whether you like that Arthur or not, at the end of the day, he can get the job done if they allow him to pay bad guys to get stolen stuff back. And the Gardner case, we are at that place now, where at the end of the day, if you want it back, you're going to have to pay the bad guys. I'm sorry about that. Even if it's only handlers, not going to be the thieves or close, but it could be anyone. I mean, it could be Lance's uncle might have been involved in it, and he's got access to a picture. So Lance wants to monetize that. That's all it is. I mean, people have got to get off their moral high horse, to be honest with you. And you see, people like Amore, they play into that. Oh, well, let's hang them high. Let's arrest them. Let's have a press conference. Let's sting operation. A ruse. $10 million. Sounds good, doesn't it? You try getting it. You got more chance of winning the lottery.
And keep my Uncle Miles Connor out of this.
Okay, yes, exactly. Good man. Good man. There you go. But you see, that's what we're dealing with, honestly, and it's about time. I tried to do this right 5 years ago and tried to tell people the whole story and say, let's get a reward price list. Let's say there's no scrutiny. The FBI don't even want to talk to you. Just tell us where the location where the art is and you're paid. Lawyers can get involved. The problem is now is they still got that prosecutorial method to use. So even if you get a lawyer and he goes in and says, I'm not revealing my client, they just put him in front of a grand jury and say, give us your client's name or you're going to jail for 18 months.
Right.
I mean, I mean, come on, guys. I'll tell you what, before we finish, right, throw all the nonsense and the rhetoric, right, and the politically correct language. Let me give me your thoughts. What do you think, Tim, and what do you think, Lance? Be honest now. It's a scam, isn't it? The whole thing's an absolute scam, and Amore is nothing but a grifter.
I'm gonna go down a path here that's kind of in alignment with yours. I think that the heist itself, I don't know without specifically saying who pulled it off, but I think whoever did pull it off realized pretty quickly the heat that came with it, and they weren't anticipating how significant and the gravity. I didn't think they understood the gravity of the whole thing. And I don't know what happened after that, but I do think that the people who are in charge of finding out what happened really saw and sunk their teeth into the method in which to profit off of this. And I also think that those people who wrote books about this, who are directly connected to the Gardner Museum, didn't understand the gravity of what they were doing either, because they didn't have an end game in sight. Like you said, like if the paintings turned up, then that's sort of outside of their game plan because they didn't have an end game. You know, I don't think they expected anything to happen. So if the paintings do turn up, that really throws a wrench in everything that they've done if they're not the ones directly connected to it. And that's about all I have for the opinion on that, just because like I don't know. I have never formulated like a definitive this person or these people did this. But I do think that the people involved on both sides didn't realize how much they couldn't chew as far as what they bit off.
Yeah, and also at the end of the day, they wanted the final end game to be convictions, recovery, and jail sentences. And they've stuck rigidly to those for 35 years. And we have got precisely nowhere. We are at the same position 35 years later as they were on the 19th of March, 1990. Let that sink in.
What do you think, Tim?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Turbo's right in that. I think the FBI needs to leave the case or put out a statement. We're not going to prosecute none of these charges, because I think he's right in that people will try to profit off of it. People will try to take advantage of it. And even in that scenario with the Manzanita Ridge woman ochre, there was a lawyer who got a hold of the painting and tried to lock the other guys out and charge the museum. So there are people who will do that as well, even if someone who has the art, say, has good intentions in trying to return it for no profit. But so I think you're right, Turbo. I think the FBI needs to back off and explicitly say that they're not charging anyone, drop out of the case. And I also, it does bother me that the security director of the Gardner writes books about stolen artwork that is right along the lines of what he's trying to do. Like, it kind of annoys me because books take a long time to write. Investigations take a long time to conduct, but he's apparently not doing that. He's writing books. He's written like 3, I think. So that's a little frustrating to me.
Yeah, and colouring books as well.
Yeah.
Let's not forget the colouring books that he's done as well. Right, look, the simple case of it, right, is everyone wants a slice of it. When Mike Tyson's trainer spoke in the 80s, he said, everyone wants a slice of Mike Tyson. The Gardner art, everyone wants a slice of it. Well, the problem is it's only a very select few are allowed that slice. Anthony Amore, potentially Chris Marinello, the FBI, the Gardner Museum, right? So if you, and the public are not in, and they're not in, again, it's like the George Carlin quote, it's a big club and we ain't in it.
We just got a big slice of the Turbo train.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think you've made some very fair points here today, Turbo, in regards to the Gardner art and just crime and really human nature, certainly in today, 2025. So yeah, I think there is work to be done here in the stolen artwork. If we're expecting it to ever resurface, I think you're right. There needs to be some statements made by the FBI. Apparently the reward hasn't helped. The reward for the return of all 13 is, worded very specifically, and it didn't help. Moving it from 5 to 10 million didn't help. So something else needs to happen. I mean, look, maybe the art is just buried and no one knows where it is, or maybe what you said is, or maybe a generation down from the thief or the thieves or whoever they passed it to does have it or will have it in a few years. And I think you're right. If that's a way that it may resurface someday, I think you're right. And I think they have every reason to be nervous about approaching the FBI.
And of course, you've got to make the reward collectible. It needs to be collectible. And you're right, it'll probably be, right, it's another generation that would be handing it back. So, I mean, to be honest with you, a reward price list would go a long way. The FBI saying they're leaving the stage would go a long way, right? Then people might even start reconsidering stepping forward. And to be honest with you, I think his tenure at the Gardner Museum, right, should come to an end because he's used it as a gravy train. Whenever does he do any work? And if he's writing books and having lunch with Miles Connor, Anthony Amore, honestly, it's totally inappropriate. But anyway, we see how it goes. And if they don't do those things, right, put a date in your calendar. We come back in 5 years and have the same conversation.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, Turbo, thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. This was a lot of fun mixing it up with you live here on Empty Frames.
Thank you very much indeed, Lance. Thank you, Tim. And don't forget, you can get me on Art Hostage on X, Art Hostage on YouTube, right? And I do a daily show live about organised crime and crime cartels and stolen art if there's anything in the news. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. What
Thank
a
you.
triumphant return. Can't wait to do this again.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
All right, gonna cut here.